this morning. This meetup is going to be around HOPrS, and this is hosted by the Denver Meetup Group. And I have the pleasure of having Henrik Cox join us today to do the presentation. And I'll just kind of give you a little background on Henrik. He's a product manager at OpenOrigins, and he leads initiatives to enhance trust and transparency in digital media. His work focuses on distinguishing authentic content from AI-generated material and addresses the growing challenges in media verification that we have today. Previously, Henrik served as a product engineer and business development manager at Conservation X Labs, and he contributed to the development of Sentinel there, which was an AI toolkit designed to improve wildlife monitoring through advanced technologies like trail cameras and acoustic recorders. And really, Henrik's experience lies in his intersection of blockchain, artificial intelligence, and conservation technology. And he's been recognized by a number of forums, including the AI for the Planet Alliance at the United Nations headquarters. And so please welcome Henrik Cox today to talk about HOPrS, which is really a way to show how generative media can be verified, and so that we're not subject to anything that's misinformation or any type of manipulated content. So Henrik, I'm going to turn it over to you. And what I also want to say is during the session here, I'm going to go ahead and open the chat. And if anybody wants to ask any questions of Henrik while we're going through the presentation, feel free to post them in the chat. And then at the end of Henrik's presentation, then we're going to get in and we're going to ask various Q&A questions as we move along. So Henrik, over to you, and we're looking forward to this presentation.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the introduction. It sounds like you've really done your homework, dug into my LinkedIn as well. Yeah, my name is Henrik. I joined the startup that's based in London called OpenOrigins at the start of the year. Before that, I worked for 5-6 years at a wildlife conservation nonprofit building AI smart cameras, building out new models to basically say, is there something going on here? Are we spotting the endangered wildlife? So that's my background. But today I'll chat a bit more about an intro to what OpenOrigins does, just to set the stage for this lab project that we've been working on called HOPrS, which stands for Human-Oriented Proof System. And the goal of the organization of the startup is to essentially prove what's real. I'll just jump straight into things. So let me share my screen over here. Great. So intro to us, and then we will take the second half of this demo into what HOPrS is and how to get involved into it. So the first piece of this is the main problem about why OpenOrigins exists in the first place is we've been seeing a ton of misinformation being a primary risk to society as a whole. We're seeing a huge tsunami wave of AI-generated content. We're seeing a lot of misinformation come of that. You know, there's real world consequences right now. If 34 million images are being created daily, what does that mean for the real world? We're seeing a lot of things happening with deepfakes, political figures, people of no interest, high profile individuals getting attacked, whether that's through deepfake scams or whether there's just misinformation being spread about them. Companies themselves are also getting attacked. If we're seeing people on Zoom calls, for example, pretending to be a CEO or someone's boss, demanding that money get transferred or trade secrets get shared across certain communications channels, then these are the certain things and events that are happening because it's becoming so easy nowadays to create a fake and to use that to deceive and manipulate. And the reason why it's getting really tough to combat this is because the startup, the OpenOrigins, really thinks about if we're building better detection tools, then those better detection tools are just going to get used to build better fake creation models. So it's a never-ending loop. It's almost like a losing arms race where the better the tech for good, the easier it is to misuse that and if it gets into the wrong hands. And so what OpenOrigins does, we've got deep fake detections that can't keep up with, that's the losing arms race. And there have been other tools like image forensics that have been pretty effective in the past, but scalability and speed is now the aim of the game. And if AI technology is becoming super, super quick, how can image forensics catch up? It's going to be pretty difficult. So the way that we think about it is instead of taking part in this losing arms race, instead of trying to build a next detection tool in every 2 to 6 months, having to completely start from scratch, we approach the problem by spinning it on its head. And we say, if we know something is real, if we know it's coming from a verified source, or it's created in a real environment, or it's made by a real person, we can put a stamp of authenticity on that and keep that trust, that receipt of proof from now until essentially the end of the time. And so that's the core of what OpenOrigins focuses on. At its core, it's a blockchain company. We do a little bit of work with AI technologies as well to start to spot differences in images and tampering and edits. But really at the fundamental levels of the work that we do, we're trying to be an infrastructure layer. We're trying to give the possibility, we're trying to create the possibility that every single media asset, that's a photo, that's a video, we can do text documents as well, potentially audio files on the internet, can have some kind of stamp of proof that says, I know where this was created. And at the moment of creation, we proved that that was created by someone. And we're able to carry that proof from now until forever. Just a little bit under the hood, we talked a little bit about, we're a blockchain company that is at its core. It's the same product, it's the same process, but we focus this in two different avenues. One we call archive anchoring, and the other that we call secure sourcing. And archive anchoring has really been what we've worked on for the past year, which is primarily working with big media organizations and newsrooms and saying, you know that you trust everything that's in your archive, that you've recorded and gathered and stored for the past 50, maybe to 100 years, depending on how old some of these companies have been. If you have trust in those archives, that's great. But we're now seeing a potential situation where someone might be able to come in and inject a ton of synthetic content. And now, how can you trust that some of the content within your archive is necessarily real or not, if you haven't had some kind of fail-safe check or association to, we know what is real and we have that proof of receipt. So one way we do that is to go through all the media files with a media company that we're partnering with and essentially hash every single media file and store those hash keys onto our own blockchain. And the secure sourcing part is exactly the same thing, just at the moment of capture. So we've developed things for mobile applications, and if you're taking videos and photos on mobile devices, it's capturing the GPS, the time data, the timestamp. It's also using the true depth information from the cameras, so we can actually tell that this is a 3D environment instead of someone just taking a screenshot or taking a photo of a photo that's on my computer screen, trying to deceive anyone in that kind of way. And we're doing the same process carries on. We hash that media file and then we store that onto our blockchain as well and provide the transaction information, and no one can come in and tamper with what's been going on and what's stored on that decentralized network. And yes, that's basically giving the proof to the end consumer, especially from newsrooms and anyone who wants to work in trust, anyone who wants to just be 100% certain that what they're delivering is coming from a real person in a real environment. So that's OpenOrigins in a nutshell. We work with cryptographic hashing, blockchain company at its core, and now we're thinking about how do we actually make these kinds of tools more robust? If we are doing things like rotating images or cropping them or changing the saturation or turning them into grayscale, or using Photoshop to use the generative tooling that says, right, I want to circle around someone's face and actually swap someone's face out for a celebrity or something along those lines. What are the additional tools that we can put out into the world, and try and build a better framework that's going to come out of this? And one of the things that has been coming out of it is HOPrS. As I mentioned, HOPrS stands for Human-Oriented Proof System, and it is what is it? So it's an open source framework that is essentially building on top of the work that we've been doing. It's that cryptographic framework designed to bolster some of the tamper-proof authentication, and tooling to be able to verify provenance for digital media. What it essentially is built upon is perceptual hashes, as well as quadtree segmentations. We'll get into the weeds on this in a second. And then the same process of being able to cryptographically hash and then anchor the results of that onto our own proprietary blockchain. That's what we deliver the proof of authenticity to folks at the end of the day. Perceptual hashing, if we go to the core of what OpenOrigins has been doing, primarily working on cryptographic hashes. Anyone who might not be aware, cryptographic hashes are a way for us to say, with this photo, if anything changes in the photo itself, or if the metadata associated with it is edited or removed in any kind of way, and then we rehash that media file, the two hashes will not look like each other in any sense. And what we can do then is say, well, the hash key is different. We've never seen this version of that image before. We cannot say with any confidence that that is the original that was used to be secure onto our blockchain. But as we said, there are things that people can do to edit and tweak a photo in order to show the edits and the tampering down the line. Perceptual hashing and other kinds of hashes are a method to be able to spot those edits. So instead of saying, right, two different cryptographic hashes, I have no way of telling you that this is the original in any way. This is just a totally different media file in my eyes. A perceptual hash is instead telling us a similarity score. So it can tell us, I've seen something similar on our blockchain, and it's about 80% similar to this image that I can now share with you. But there are certain parts of this image that have been changed or have been edited. But that remaining question of what parts of the image is where the quadtree segmentation comes from. So that's where HOPrS really builds on top of a lot of perceptual hashing tools that are out there. And I can show you what that looks like in action. So if we take an image, we've got this one of a plane in the UK, and we just draw a sun. We edit it in some kind of fashion. The first piece of this is we're going through that perceptual hashing phase, which is to say, are we looking for something that we've already got on our blockchain? Is it something similar to something we've already secured? And do we have a similarity score associated with it? And the perceptual hash stage of this will say, this is not an entirely new image. This is something that is 80, 90% similar to what I've seen before. So I'm going to take it through the second stage, which is the quadtree segmentation, and build out new perceptual hashes for every single one of these little quadrants. So if you can see my cursor, if not, don't worry about it. On the right image, we split the image down into 4 pieces, 4 quadrants of equal size. 3 of those are exactly the same as the image that was on the left-hand side. And so the perceptual hash between the left and the right in these bottom 3 quadrants are the same. And we can say, great, there's nothing changed about that. As soon as we get into the top right quadrant on the last image, something's changed about it. And so we start to segment the quadrant into smaller pieces, even more and more. And this is a balancing act between how much you want to spend processing power to do this work versus actually getting down to the nitty-gritty on a pixel level. We create more perceptual hashes as we get further down to start to identify where is it in the image that things have been changed and altered. In this case, we're starting to see that as each of the smaller quadrants are coming back as green, we can tell that nothing's changed within there. But as soon as they're coming back as red, then we identify that pixels have been altered here. This is different. This has been tampered with compared to what we see originally. And so to give you a little bit of an example of like what that could look like in the real world, we made a little fun demo here. I'm going to quickly change over to this tab just so you can see. Hopefully this shares on people's screens. But if I play this from the beginning, this is taking an image and slap someone else's face on. In fact, we've taken someone's normal photo and it's been modified to look like Taylor Swift. And this is seeing the before and after. It's not showing the actual image before, but if I stop it right there, this is demonstrating to us that other pieces of the photo are exactly the same, exactly what we what we just saw for the plain photo as well, where we don't need to bother with additional segmentation or perceptual hashes for parts of the photo that are identical. But as soon as we narrow down more and more into the pieces that have been changed, that's when we start to align on things that are looking different and can act on that. And I'm going to switch back to this for a second. There we go. And that's it. That's really what OpenOrigins is doing. That's what we have been working on with HOPrS. We are part of the lab is we're releasing the framework to be open source, as well as an average hashing technique. And really the contribution behind that is it's possible to work on new hashing techniques, new perceptual hashing techniques, for example, and being able to plug those into the framework and seeing how they run, just really like playing around with it and testing it out. We've just set up a channel in the Linux Foundation's Discord server, and we've also moved our GitHub repo over to Linux Foundation as well. This is the first potentially of many more community calls and meetups along the project's progress, but happy to share at least this kickoff and see where we go from here. So with that, I think we can share this slide as well with folks who are on the call, so you can reach the links to Discord and GitHub. But thank you for the time.
Yeah, that's an exceptional presentation, Henrik, and I can see really the true value of this, code base in the real world to authenticate images. So let's talk about a couple of questions that are posted in the chat, and then I've got some follow-up questions as well. And then anybody who's on the call, feel free to go ahead and post questions to Henrik as well. But Henrik, let's just kick it off. And it looks like the one you showed with Taylor Swift there, say you mentioned that the original to edited image is being detected. But here the person's asking about what happens if it's just AI driven from point one.
Exactly. No, it's a good question, Ishi. In that case, I mentioned at the start that we have positioned ourselves as not an AI or deepfake detector. So we don't do the work of scraping the internet and trying to find every single fake that's out there. The way that we would approach that problem is if someone wants to say, I need to verify if this is real, and it's come from some AI generation tool, the best we can do is say, we've never seen this before. And if we're doing the work of anchoring and securing and hashing as many real media files as we possibly can on the internet with media companies, ideally in the next few years, we want to scale that to an internet-wide amount. So we can be pretty well trusted if someone is coming in with a real photo and says, oh, is this coming from some archive from a media company or from some newsroom? We can have a pretty good shot at saying, yes, we've seen this before. You can 100% guarantee on it. But yeah, our approach to being able to spot fakes in AI, fully AI generated images is just to say, we've never seen this before. You've got to take it with a grain of salt. It sounds a little dystopian where we might enter a world where we say, you cannot believe anything you see unless it has some kind of proof authenticated to it. But we're at least preparing for that potential circumstance.
Okay. Looks like we got another question here from Denium. And he's, I'm not super familiar with blockchain beyond distributed ledger, but would a system like this have the same problems as something like the web of trust system in PGP? I.e. digital signatures may not mean anything if they're not real people.
It's a really good question. I have to sit on that one. So this might not answer your question directly, Dana. So digital signatures and adding metadata and trying to keep that metadata associated with files has its flaws. One of the things that we're working on is I don't know if you're familiar with C2PA, which is essentially a digital signature, or more like a manifest associated with metadata that is associated to a media file. the CCPA manifests are easily stripped and edited. And in fact, they're voluntary. So nothing is added to a manifest automatically unless you have like a tool or a signing tool to be able to do that for you. You have to go in, and once you Photoshop something, you would then go in and change the CCPA information yourself voluntarily. If you then upload that image to a social media platform, or if it's a video and you upload it to YouTube, right now that CCPA information just gets stripped entirely from. So there's a lot of weaknesses around it. And one of the we're part of CCPA because we believe that adoption and oh, I don't know why that happened. Adoption of I'll keep the thumbs up and hopefully that'll do that. Adoption of tools like that is important to be able to build up trust, but we also want to nitpick in the holes of where things like fall through, which is why HOPrS exists, because it's not our cryptographic hashing is not going to solve all the problems in the world around being able to prove something is real, because if you just crop it slightly, great, the cryptographic hash breaks. But if you were to say use tools like this and watermarking and other forms of digital fingerprints on top of what CCPA is providing, there might be a way to build out a system that says the CCPA manifest that's stripped during transcoding processes, during upload and download processes can be retrieved if they're fact-checked with other technologies like watermarking and like hashing and retrieving from the blockchain, if they are more robust than the metadata associated. So it's more about there's no silver bullet here, so to speak. There's going to be a lot of problems and a lot of different tools to fix all the little tiny little grainy problems. But trying to work within an ecosystem where a lot of folks can chime in and share certain tools that are better suited to certain challenges. I hope that partially answers your question. Great, thanks.
Okay, here's another interesting question, Henrik, that I think is definitely worthy of discussion. So Jeff is asking about, there's always going to be network errors when transmitting very large files. So is there a threshold, other than 100%, that would be able to be configured to say whether or not the image is valid? So that's the question he's looking at there.
It's a good question, Jeff. If it's the same image, it is 100% similar. So with perceptual hashes, if you are trying to verify an image and you know that that's, let's say, been hashed and put on our blockchain, that will come back and as a 100% similarity score. That being said, HOPrS, perceptual hashes, all the technologies that are around this space can be made to be more robust. You might end up building in early stages of this technology something that says your image is 100% similar to the same one that you've uploaded, but is also 90% similar to this dog that is prancing through a field and has nothing to do with the selfie that you uploaded in the first place. So in the early days of such technology, you are playing with trying to make those kinds of tools more robust, which is why we built out HOPrS in the first place, in an effort to do that. But if it's your question, if it hits 100% similarity score, then that is a sign that is the same image that you have represented or secured to that blockchain in the first place.
Yeah, let's look at one follow-up before we move on to the next question here. So Henrik, let's just say that the perceptual percentage is 99% versus 100%. Is that a complete match, or how do you interpret that from this perceptual?
If it's 99% in the way that we've built this, something's changed. Something very, very minor. And that would be to hit 99%. As I said earlier, it's going to be a balancing game of how fine-grained you want the segmentation to take place. If you want to go down to the single pixel level, that's great, but it's going to be a heck of a lot slower as a tool and use a lot more compute to run that. But it will get you that 99% difference. If we are trying to build something, on the other hand, that's much more lightweight and does give me a quick glance and tell me if something's at least 70% similar, then you'll start to scale that segmentation threshold back and say, all right, well, if I get 100%, then there's the potential that it's missed. So maybe I'm contradicting myself to your question earlier, Jeff. Depending on that balance, you might hit certain thresholds that are going to cause a certain percentage to go up or down, depending if that segmentation piece is small enough to catch what's different. If you're hitting 99%, you're going to need something that is going really down into the nitty-gritty of an image to be able to pick out the certain pixels that are changing on that level of refined scale. But that's a very good question. Very, very good question.
Yeah, let me just ask you a follow-on to that too, Henrik, about percentages. So you had two examples there. The first one was with the plane, and then there was obviously a computer-generated sun that was drawn on the image, right? So what would the percentage look like on that image? And then follow on to that is, like the one where Taylor Swift's face is overlaid on another person with a shirt. What do those percentages look like where you could say, oh yeah, obviously, this person wrote on this image with a digital pen and this person's face was replaced on this image?
Yeah, both of them will be about 80%.
80.
Yeah,
Okay.
just about 80%, because it's not necessarily the specific number of pixels that are being altered, but more the amount of area of a photo that's being changed, based on how refined the number of segments are that you're working with for a specific image.
Okay, perfect. Then it looks like Denium followed up and just talked about TCP as a protocol and saying that there wouldn't be any network errors. I guess my question to you is, have you seen any network errors that cause the image to be modified when you're dealing with your customers, or how does that normally look for you?
We've never really had issues based on network errors.
Okay.
And this can go more into the weeds of OpenOrigins' own like core products and the like. When we're working with media companies, we have done quite a lot of work where we transfer to our own infrastructure and then do the hashing and then the security onto the blockchain. But the goal is to be able to not have to put those kinds of transferring costs onto end users and folks that we work with, especially if there's secure and sensitive information that they would rather not send to anyone. We would rather build tools that sit on their servers and can do the hashing work in that side. But the network error end of things hasn't been much of an issue for us to date. That's a good point.
Okay, perfect. Looks like ET has another question here about detecting changes in the picture using hashing. One thing that concerns me is there can't be much more added to that because it might as well be impossible to prove its origin. Am I wrong?
Do you mind elaborating on the question, EC? In my opinion, the one thing that concerns me, it can't be much more added to it because it might as well be impossible to prove its origin. Oh, I think I see what you mean. So the question, if I can paraphrase this, is if I've never seen an image before and secured it to our blockchain, why would I use HOPrS? Because there's not going to be any kind of similar image to compare it to in the first place, if that's the question you're asking. Really
Yeah.
good. Okay. No, 100%. The restriction with what we do is there has to be an original. There has to be an original that we have secured onto our blockchain, because that's what we're going to go and check with this bank of hash keys that are out there, to come back and say verified exact image or similar image and here are the parts that are being altered or edited in some way. It's kind of similar to the question you asked earlier. What do we do if there's a fully baked AI generated image and we've never seen that before? the best we can do is really turn around and say, we've never seen this before. You've got to like use your gut or intuition or other tools to be able to do that. But 100%, if we've not seen an original, then HOPrS is not going to be a very effective tool to be able to provide that kind of like image has been edited in some kind of way response or answer to it. This would more likely be a helpful tool. I mean, if we are aiming to be an infrastructure layer, we want to scale this as much as we possibly can. And the end goal would be to say, if nearly every media organization, for example, is using the tools, the infrastructure that we're working on, and as a backup, they are creating hash keys of all their media files and storing those onto our blockchain, then we have a pretty good bank of if someone takes an image from a news organization or their website and then changes phases and does some things to it, makes Paris look like it's melting down, for example, then we've already done the work of securing that photo, and HOPrS and other tools are going to be a heck of a lot more effective if they've got a lot more media original files in the bank to compare those two. So that's a really good question. And yes, you have to have an original to do any of this work.
Okay, next one looks like Denium has another question about trust anchors for validating the content.
Yes. Also, Jeff was asking if there's access to this. The framework is totally open source. So it's there's a link I can, well, if I show the screen, it's just going to say link, but we'll share the slides on this after this call, and you'll be able to access that GitHub repo and have a play around yourself, Jeff. And yes, as you said, it's a really good image change detector, but like you said earlier, it needs an original to compare it to. With the trust anchors. So we've tried, I think the decentralized model is the one we've been working on, Danum, is build out a blockchain decentralized network. And the reason we've done that is because we don't want this to be a centralized approach. We don't want anyone to have the keys to truth. We don't want a single server being and also it can't be hacked and altered as easily. The way we've gone about this is there are a lot. It's not difficult to hash media files. It's not difficult to create cryptographic hashes. But with us building our own like very specific blockchain technology that is for these kinds of hash keys, we've approached it in that way because we want those proofs at the end of the day that the media companies and folks who want to see something real and verify it can come back and get a receipt of that proof and know that that can't be changed. So 100% right, like that decentralized model is the way that we're going about this.
All right, let me ask you a question just about participants that would want to take advantage of this. So, in the US, there's AP, Associated Press, that has a wealth of images going back to the 1800s. So, being able to take those images that are a complete archive of, a lot of history there, and being able to say, okay, these are all of the AP images, and this is all correct content. And when you see an image that may come from an AP library that's been modified, we can definitely detect that and tell you that's not our image, that's not historically accurate.
That's right. Yep. We've been talking to AP. I'm not sure where we're at. I'm not on the sales team, but
yeah, no problem. I'm just saying that would be a perfect example of, a company that has a great library of images that would want to make sure that, their images aren't taken and manipulated and then, showing something that's not historically accurate or what the AP, printed at the time. So there you go. Yeah.
That's right, John. I mean, that's exactly what we want to be able to do is work with these kinds of large companies who, as you said, have got media dating back hundreds of years. And we want a way to say, better protect it now before something happens and you can't at a later date. So that's step one on our agenda.
Okay. And then the other question is just what types of media files are you able to work with in HOPrS? Is it PDFs?
Oh,
Is
HOPrS
JPEG?
is HOPrS is specifically image based right now, and we're going to start exploring with videos. Audio files are tricky. Audio files are tricky for everything, to be honest. But right now, HOPrS is primarily focused on image changes, and then videos will come next. But that's also, if there are contributors who are able to experiment with different types of media files. There's OCR technology to be able to spot changes in text documents, for example. So we've not really prioritized that. It could be something that we work on, but the focus has primarily been on images so far.
Mhm. Okay. And the main thing is, I'm always interested in, developing contributors and collaborators on the project. So maybe you can talk a little bit about, who's the current contributors and how anyone on the call who's really interested in this great project in the labs can, get involved in the project for sure.
So far, it's all been in-house. We just have our team of engineers, which is not a big team. We have all of OpenOrigins is 10 people. And so the engineering team is about half of that, that work on the product and the engineering side. And obviously, a lot of the day-to-day is focused on, well, there's active work being done on HOPrS right now, but we're also working on the blockchain. We're working on our APIs, our SDKs. So there's a lot moving very, very quickly under this roof. And we wanted to build out a framework here that we could just say, right, well, this technology is necessary. We can keep our heads down all day and try to do the whole startup hustle and grind. But and we might potentially open source a lot more of the work that we're doing down the line. But we wanted to push out something that we've been putting on as this project on the side for a while and see what a bigger community of folks who are interested in this could do with it. And really, there's no specifics beyond that. The GitHub repo link will be in the slide deck that can be shared. We're quite blunt about in like the README everything to do with what's worked, what's not worked, what we're working on right now. There's more information in there as we created a proposal for this. So all the background for it is also included. Most of the examples are basically what you've seen today on the presentation. But I have no specific direction or angle with this except for dive in, see if it interests you. And if there's something that you want to play around with, then 100% like let's talk, get in touch, or just have a crack at it. We're pretty flexible that way.
Perfect. Yeah. No, it sounds like, very open, typical open source type of development, which is great. So kind of tying into that too, Henrik, is what other projects in the, Hyperledger LFDT ecosystem are you collaborating with or, tie into?
A lot of our work is built around Hyperledger Besu. So that's been the biggest one that we've been working from. I can't say off the top of my head that we are working with alongside many other projects, but our founder Manny, he he might be, Frankensteining something in the background as he normally does. He's a pretty academic person by background, and so he might be tinkering away with more. But Hyperledger Besu has been the main one that we've been working with um, for the time being.
Okay, perfect. And then how about as far as, the roadmap, labs are always kind of the first point of intersection in the Hyperledger ecosystem. So what does the roadmap look like, or what are the goals of the labs project as you move forward?
So right now we have engineers actively working on making different types of hashes to be more robust against things like cropping and rotation of images and being able to spot that. We intend to share the results around those with the work that we've been doing. And then essentially just sharing with the community and amongst folks that are on Discord or on GitHub, what kind of things we've been trying that have been working well and not working as well. But really, this is just the first step in a lot of the things we've been trying. We proposed this originally as a full-fledged incubation project, and we realized, well, we've been quite heads down working on this for a long time, and there's a lot more needed to prove out additional contributors before being fully incubated could take place, which is great. We're in a place where we're going to keep working on this, and we'd love for folks who are interested to jump in and try some things out. Then being a labs project was a perfect place for us, and being able to like keep going on the work that we're doing, while also bringing people into the conversation that really want to be a part of it. So the roadmap is, put it bluntly, work hard and see what happens, and hopefully get some tooling out of this that is robust against a lot of the challenges and edits that are hard to spot these days.
And is there any type of live demo? I know we looked at that Taylor Swift image, where you're kind of moving the slider back and forth around it. Is there any other live demo that's available for people if they want to do follow-up and check it out some more?
Not yet, but that is a good point. We should probably put one together. So no live demo right now, but I'll make a note of this, and hopefully that's something we can share pretty soon, especially on Discord.
Perfect. And then how about any other tools or libraries available for developers if they want to integrate with HOPrS?
There's potentially more resources I can add into the GitHub repo that are around different perceptual hashing tools that are already out there, just linking them and saying, oh, have a go with these. There might be a few that we've also already tested out. So that's more information I can add in. So I'll be able to share a bit more information around that later on, I think.
Okay, perfect. Let's see if anybody else has any other questions they want to ask in the chat. Or if you want to raise your hand, we can have you, ask the question directly if that would help. Jeff, E.T., Danum. Nope, no more questions from E.T. Okay, great, no problem. We just want to make sure, because this is such a great project, I just want to make sure that we get all the questions answered, and this will be published on the YouTube channel, so we'll be able to go back and reference it. But covering all the different aspects of the project is really what I want to get done here.
And if there's any more, the Discord server's up and channel's up and running as well. Thanks, Dana. So feel free to message me or put it in the channel about that.
Okay, perfect. What I'll say to you is, Henrik, if they want to, reach out and get involved in the project, what would be the best way to, touch base with the team? Would you want to, have them reach out on Discord, or go to, I put the GitHub repository link in the chat. You tell me what you think is the best way for people to get more engaged with the project.
Check out the GitHub repo first. See what you think, see what you like about it, don't like about it, and then feel free to join the Discord. And if we start to engage and work more and more closely, then obviously I can share my email. We can always chat more there. So yeah, I'm pretty flexible about that sort of thing.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think we've covered everything, unless there's something else, Henrik, that you want to cover with the group on the call this morning.
I saw ET was writing, actually, might have had a question. Oh, what's my Discord username? It will be, I've actually got a specific one for OpenOrigins. It's just Henrik_00, I think. Yeah.
I got tired of typing. Sorry. That's for just a quick question, Henry. What's it written in? What languages are you using?
It is, oh, we're changing that right now. So some of the work is, most of our frameworks are written in Python. Most of it.
That's good.
I need to double check if we're changing anything right now into Golang, but that might be a different. You know what, Jeff? I actually have to confirm that. I don't know why I don't know that off the top of my head. But yeah, I will.
Okay, no
I'll
problem.
Go check it out on GitHub answer. I knew, I just have blanked on it at the moment.
No problem, Henrik. It's a great question, Jeff. And I'm sure, as you go through the GitHub, and Henrik will be able to follow up with you if you need him. And if you want to just post your email in the chat, then Jeff can, be contacted. Otherwise, we can keep moving here.
Yeah. Jeff, it should be in Python, and we're considering rewriting in Golang for speed efficiency, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay, Jeff posted his email there in the chat if you want to follow up with him, but it sounds like he just already answered the question, which is great, Henrik. So
all good. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the excellent presentation today. We really appreciate it. And
thank you.
I know there'll be a lot of good community support here for you. And look forward to a future presentation as you continue to develop the project in the labs. So reach out again, and I'd love to go through another presentation as you make more progress here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and looking forward to the future of this.
Okay, everyone. Well, thanks for joining the session, and we'll catch up on the next one. Take care.